Welcome to today's episode where we are going to be exploring the psychology about how we dress, fashion trends, and what it really means to dress age appropriately. We will explore how social conformity plays into choosing what we wear and how our own self identity can influence how we kind of follow fashion trends, like whether we choose to or we don't. We will also dive into the role that confidence and body type play in shaping our fashion choices, particularly as we get older, and how that kind of goes along with the growing impact of inclusivity in the industry, the fashion industry. But before we get into today's topic, we are going to be doing our 4-minute faves. So let's start off today. Wilhelmina, do you want to start us off?
Yeah. So, to no one's surprise, I'm going to talk about a TV show I started watching this week. Disclaimer. Has anyone heard of this one?
No.
No.
Okay. It's
Oh,
on
wait. Yes.
Apple
Who's in
TV.
this?
Kate Blanchett,
Yes.
Kevin Kline, and an almost unrecognizable Sacha Baron Cohen. It actually took me a full episode to figure out it was Sacha Baron Cohen.
Is it because they've disguised him or he just looks so
No,
different?
like you think of him as Borat,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
And
Yeah.
so he looks like a,
Guy.
kind of semi-attract or like an attractive 50-year-old man now who's married to Kate Blanchett, not at all like Borat. So that's where,
He's not wearing a thong.
he's not wearing a thong.
Neon
He's
babies.
not being completely inappropriate. So, it is, I'm going to say very little about this. Terry, don't worry. But because you can't say anything about it, because this is a show filled with all twists and turns, and it's all about what you don't know that is going to be revealed. But I'm going to give you what happens in the first few minutes of the episode that sets up the whole show. So basically, this show is in a couple different timelines. So you have the past, which is about 20 years ago, you have current, and then you have a couple middle fillers leading us all the way up to current times. And it goes back and forth between these time periods. And then it starts with Kate Blanchett. She is a journalist. She is getting an award. Everyone is praising her. She's coming home after this very fancy night with her husband, and she opens the mail. She gets a package. She opens the package. It's a book. The book is called The Perfect Stranger. It just looks like a simple little book. She opens it up. There's a dedication to my son. She opens the next page and it says, disclaimer. Any resemblance to persons living or dead is not a coincidence. And then she goes on to, in one night, read the book. You don't know what the book says. You don't know what's going on. But she ends up like throwing up afterwards. Like she is just panicked. She starts to burn the book. She is just in a full panic. And you're like, what was in this book? And basically that's what we are going to find out in this show. What is this secret thing that she has done in her past that someone knows about and has written this book that is clearly identifying her? And it's so good. And that's really all I'm going to say, because it's all of these things and all of this. And they released the first 2 episodes. I like flew through them and then was like, wait, there's not another episode. Then they released the next 2 episodes last Friday. Watch those. And now the next episode is going to drop this Friday. So new episodes each Friday. Very good. Very good. The acting, top notch. It's just great.
Yeah, those are big names.
The director is Alfonso Cuarón. So he's an Academy Award winning director. He did Roma back a couple years ago. He won Best Director for that. He did that movie Gravity with Sandra Bullock. So like very good. He did. I've liked most of the things I've ever seen of his. He has such a good way of like the relationships with the people. It's great. It's great.
Good.
Lauren, what are you loving?
You guys, I was thinking about this morning and laughing with my husband, Tim. And I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like I've been Groundhog Day, like Groundhog's Day in this family, like for like a month. I'm like, I have nothing new. Like we're watching the same TV show. We've been watching, like we're trying to get through the same TV show. I'm like, we're doing the same things every week. Like, what in the world am I using? Or like, what's making life good? So I actually finally figured it out. If you are it's actually the tea that I'm drinking. If you are a fall person and you love something warm, something cozy to drink in the afternoons and the evenings, I've become obsessed with cinnamon apple spice herbal tea. I know this is like such an old lady thing from Celestial Seasonings, but it's like the best. It makes me happy. It's just like a little perk to my day in the afternoons and evenings when I'm avoiding caffeine. It's caffeine free.
I was gonna ask.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah, caffeine free. It's
gotta love that
delicious.
sensitivity to caffeine as you
I
get
know, right?
older.
Oh,
Right.
forget it.
Part of
After
the
noon,
package
I'm
deal,
like,
Vanessa.
I can't
Part of
do
the
it.
package.
I used to
Oh my,
drink tea every night, green tea. We like Mark and I would watch a show, we drink tea, and I started realizing that like I couldn't fall asleep, and
yeah.
so I can no longer drink tea
I have
at
to be
night.
Or
careful
anything with
about like
caffeine.
decaf
Yes.
coffee at a dinner, like
Oh,
decaf
yeah.
coffee
Yeah.
at a dinner. I
So
have
it
to
has
be
a little bit.
careful because it'll be like midnight and I'll be like, bing. So no, this is very good, caffeine free, perfect for the season, cinnamon apple. That's it. Terry, what you got?
Okay. I feel a little behind the ball on this because maybe this is I feel like people were watching these a couple weeks ago, but the Menendez brothers on Netflix.
Oh,
I
yes.
started it.
Yeah. So
Yes.
my husband and I over the weekend watched the first episode of the fictional one. So the fictional series.
Brutal.
And my plan is to watch that first because I have a few friends who said they watched that and then they watched the documentary that followed.
How in the
Yeah.
world did you watch this, Terry? I
I
saw
don't care about
the
shooting.
episode.
Nope. I don't care
Okay.
about shooting. You could shoot
Okay.
somebody all day long. That doesn't bother
Okay.
me.
Okay.
It's the
In
slight.
a fictional sense.
Yeah, she's like gory. She doesn't like gory
I
stuff.
don't like gory.
This was so gory. That
Right.
death scene was super gory.
I had no problem. It's very specific. I don't like
Okay.
cutting, slicing, torture
Knives.
type things.
Yeah.
You're
So-
not seeing Terrifier 3. You're
No.
not watching that one.
No.
Okay.
So yeah, to clarify, fictional shooting. I like The Sopranos. I like The Godfather. I was fine seeing it. Fictional shooting, I can watch that all day long. So I had been hesitant to watch it originally because I have two boys who are a couple years apart. So I kept cracking jokes with friends. I'm like, maybe
Oh
I'm
my
gonna stay away
gosh.
from the Menendez brothers. But we were looking for something to watch. It certainly captured my attention.
Mhm.
And what's interesting is I remember when it happened. I looked
Yeah.
up the time. I think I was in third or fourth grade. My oldest is in fourth, and he is starting to pay attention to news stories. So I do remember, and I don't remember being freaked out about it when I was a kid. And what's really interesting to me is my memory of it in real time was that it was two men who killed their parents. I thought they were really old when I was a kid.
Oh, yeah.
And now I'm watching it, and they're 18 and 21.
Yeah.
They're young adults. They're barely out of
Yeah.
adolescence. So as I'm watching it, the fictionalized version on Netflix, I was thinking, wow, when I was a kid, I thought they were old, like older men who killed their
Yeah.
parents. So I found it just very interesting. I really liked it. It's a little over the top. I mean, it's sort of cheesy
Yeah.
in some ways.
Sure.
Uh,
It's like Ryan Murphy, right?
I think so.
Isn't
No,
it him?
is it?
Yeah.
I don't
think
know.
so.
I don't know
Gotcha.
who that is.
Yeah. Ryan Murphy does all the
I don't think he's right. He might be involved in it. I don't think he's the main director, though. He might be
Okay.
like an executive producer. I don't think
Yeah.
he
Yeah,
is.
it didn't freak me out. So if you're somebody who's squeamish like me with movies, or shows and stuff, I was relatively okay with it. And it was, I don't know, it was interesting. And now I'm very curious to watch the real follow-up documentary.
Did you finish the show or just watch the first?
Just the first one. So
Okay, so just for like kind of warning, I have not finished it, but I've heard people talk about it. There gets to be some pretty very graphic like abuse,
yes,
child abuse, sexual abuse.
that's my
that
understanding.
gets brought up later. So
Right.
just for
But I
our
have heard,
listeners.
Terry, to your point, watching the fictional and then the documentary is like a really interesting contrast. I haven't watched, but I've heard that approach.
And we don't get that a lot in general. I think with TV
Right.
shows, there's fictionalized series, and then there
Yeah.
isn't a parallel follow-up documentary right after. So I thought that'd be
Yeah.
kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You'll have to
Interesting.
keep us posted.
Yes.
I'll keep watching and we can chat.
Yes. How about you, Vanessa?
So my fave today is kind of goes along with our topic of like fashion, and when we're going to talk about like trends and keeping up with trends. So I'm going to be talking about Uggs today. So
Ooh.
I never got into Uggs when they were popular the first time. Did you guys do Uggs like
I
when
did.
they were? Okay.
Yep.
So I didn't because I am 5'3" and a smidge and I have a size 9 foot. And while I loved them on everyone else, I was like, I look like I have Sasquatch feet in them. So I never
You make your feet look huge.
they never so like they make your feet look big, but if you have like if you're proportionate your shoe size and your body height, like it probably looks fine on you. So I always just felt like they accentuated the fact that like I have big feet for my height. which I'm okay with. So I never got into them. And then they've kind of re-emerged. I feel like they're now very popular, but now they've come out with kind of not just the boots, but they've also the slides. So last year I got just like slippers and I was like, oh, these are amazing. And I realized that some people were wearing the slippers outside. And the ones I got are very slipper. So like, I was like, I wouldn't wear these outside, but I did love how cozy and comfortable they were. And so this year I was like, you know what? I'm going to try some of those like thicker heel kind of Uggs to see if I like them.
Ones.
Yes. So I'm showing them. So you'll have to come see us.
Those are cute.
Check us out on YouTube. I will also post this on Instagram. So they're slippers, but I would never wear this around my house because they have like a platform.
Yeah.
They do make my feet look big. They're like so cozy and like easy to like use. So like I have to run to take Ev to like her practice. I just like slip them on, have a sweater, some leggings, and I'm good to go. So this is my share today. They're the UGG. These are the Disco Ket slipper, but there's a bunch of different designs on them. These don't have, some of them have like different colors and stuff. I like these because they're pretty plain, but they're technically a slipper, but they're platform, and I really love them. So I did give in finally to the trend of Uggs, but I've just come to accept the fact that I have big feet, and it's okay. It's okay. I like the comfort of them. I love the ease of them.
I bet you look super cute still.
So that's my share today. And just as a reminder, we share all of our faves on Instagram. So if you're interested in either seeing what we're talking about, check us out there. We also post links to everything if there's a link that's available. So if you're interested in anything that we're sharing, feel free to check us out there. And then we're also on YouTube. So if you want to see us, that's another great way to kind of watch the show and listen to the show. All right, so let's get into today's topic. So I'm going to start off with a question for everyone. So we just talked about Uggs, but tell me or share with the group here, what is a current fashion trend that you're either giving a hard no, you're like, I'm not even going to try it, I'm not even contemplating it, or that you're like, well, maybe I'm on the fence about it. Maybe, there's been fashion trends that I'm sure we've all said, I am not doing that. Like when the pointy-toed heels first came out, I was like, absolutely not. And then I have worn them. So,
so many times.
So it happens, right? So again, this is one that you're at, maybe you'll change your mind. That's okay. But you're like, hard no for me, or you're like, I'm not sure about that.
Where do we begin? I feel like I have like 10 that I could say hard no to.
Pick one. We'll go around.
Okay, pick one. So the one probably that I'm seeing the most right now, although, the most on social media, though I can't say I've seen a ton in real life, are those barrel jeans.
Oh, yeah.
I just cannot understand them. I have yet to see somebody that I think looks cute in them. They just feel awkward to me, but that's me. But to be fair, I haven't seen anybody in real life wear them. So maybe it's more of like an Instagram versus reality situation in which it's like a trend that is really not actually.
Yeah, right. I don't know that I've ever seen anyone wearing them like around.
I have a friend, a mom friend who does have a pair. If you're listening, you know who you are. And I do think they work on her. I will say she's younger than me, and maybe 8-9 years, give or take. I can't remember exactly.
So it doesn't translate.
And she's really cute, and I think she really pulls it off. And that being said, I think she's the only person I can think of that I've seen in real life.
Yeah, as I'm saying it, I'm going, I don't even know that this. I mean, it's a trend, but is it a real trend in real life? Because we're not seeing a ton of people actually wear them. But that's a hard no for me.
That's a hard no.
I don't.
Fair enough. Everyone is entitled to their hard no.
If I actually am wearing them in 6 months when we, on a girls trip or something,
we'll have them.
Yeah, we're all going to be wearing. We're going to share it on our 4-minute faves.
That's when we'll do a photo shoot.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Terry, what's your?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay.
Mine probably. Everyone's probably listening. I think maybe depending on how old you are is going to be with me on this. The ankle socks versus the no-show socks.
No.
I visually really tried. My nieces wear them. I see them out all the time. It's such a look. It shortens your leg.
Oh, that's my problem with it.
For both men and women, I don't care how tall you are, how long your legs are. It looks stupid and ridiculous. And
I don't think it looks stupid, but I agree. It does shorten your legs. So if you're petite, it's bad.
I think the no-show socks, I'm with it all the way. I don't see myself vacillating on this. I don't see myself backing down. It just looks ridiculous. But one trend that, and this has been a topic among some of my friends, my local friends, is jean jackets. And one of my friends had said, the regular, we all look like clones in our jean jackets.
I think we all have them. We've all had them on our trip.
And we're all very attached to them. But he said, no, jean jackets are still in, but more the oversized slouch. Big.
I have one.
And she has one. My friend who told me this, she's like, stop wearing your current jean jacket. Get one of these.
I can't.
And at first, my first week of seeing it, I was like, no, I'm not doing that. However, my eyes are starting to acclimate.
Yep.
And it's starting to look better to me. And I'm contemplating the slouchy oversized jean jacket.
As someone who owns both, I will say, depending on what I'm wearing, I do think the old school little one looks better, but it just depends what I'm wearing. So I feel like there's space for both. It just depends what you're wearing. So yes, that's my take on it.
You said something interesting. My eyes are acclimating to it.
Yes.
I think you're seeing it in real life. So that feels different than adopting a trend we're only seeing in the virtual world.
I think that's a huge distinction. I think that makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Well, and I could give you the rundown of how many times I said, since I've been in my 20s, I am never wearing that. Skinny jeans when they first hit. Nope, not doing it. Nope, I love my boot cut. And then my closet was suddenly filled with skinny jeans. The booty with the skinny jeans, when that first came out, I'm like, that's ridiculous. That looks stupid. Nope. I wanted to put the boots over the jeans like we used to wear when your dad thinks we look like.
So when that look first came out, however many years ago, I don't know, 15 years ago, the tall boots to the knee below the knee, but calf boots over jeans. We were somewhere and my husband, Dan, said, everyone looks like they're in the Revolutionary War. He said, that is the worst look. About 3 months later, I remember buying a pair, and we must have been married. I don't even know this, but we were living together. And I remember getting dressed to go out for the night and being like, I'm doing it. And then for years we wore that.
Yeah. But there's something to that, right? The more you see something, right? Yeah. And that goes with anything. It goes with fashion. It goes even like a song you hear there initially, you're like, oh, that's terrible. But then they keep playing it on the radio and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I kind of like this. Mm-hmm. It is that constant repetition that you're seeing something that makes you start to feel like, oh, okay, I kind of like this.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of
sit on people.
Well, people
Vanessa, do you have a trend?
Yeah.
I was going to say the like baggy kind of Janko jeans. So if you know me, you know that in high school, I was a raver. Okay. So like that was my thing. I wore oversized Jankos. I would go into my dad's closet and get his men's size large t-shirts and I would wear them, which is kind of funny because I actually wear oversized t-shirts again, but full circle. But anyway, this is what I wore in high school. You couldn't see my shoes. I looked like I was floating down the road, right? Like there was always mud and crud at the bottom of my jeans.
Oh, yeah.
So, and that was definitely my look, my aesthetic in high school. So I think there's just something about, like, I see a lot of people, maybe they're not to the extent of the pants I wore, but this oversized look. And I know that it's a lot of younger girls doing it, but I am seeing a lot of the folks that I follow who are like in their 30s, some 40s, right, who are wearing this trend. And for me, it comes down to like, I feel like as I've gotten older, I've gotten a really good sense of my body type and what works for me. Mm-hmm. And I just feel like I can say no to things that I know that don't work for me. And I personally don't think that type of jean does anything for me. I spend a lot of time in the gym doing squats, and you know what? Those jeans don't show off any of my hard work. So I just don't feel like that's a good one for me that I'm just going to be avoiding. And I get it. Like some people feel like that's like they like the way that looks, and that's great. But for me, my body type, I'm not wearing the big old baggy jeans. Not doing it.
Well, and I think with the trend I was going to mention, and kind of goes along with that, is just work with the trend, make the trend work for you if you want to. Yes. And so the crop is back, right? Like crop everything. I mean, I get so many of my mom friends who are trying to dress their, little girls, and they're like, why is everything a crop? And I said, because that's what's in. So I will get things like the sweater that I'm wearing right now, which I love, is technically a crop so it hangs like this.
You mommed
Like
it
the
up.
minute you lift your head, it's like full stomach.
Is
And
that a bodysuit or a camisole?
it's just a tank top.
Got it.
It's just a tank top.
Just curious.
So I'm sure if I were 20, I'd be wearing nothing under that. I'd just be showing off the stomach. Remember, just like back in the day with the little baby tees. Now I'm like, no. Mama needs a tank top, just because it's more comfy for me. I don't want to be like lifting my arm up and like half my skin is showing.
Comfort matters.
Yes.
More.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that becomes an issue. Well, it's funny to say that you showed your crop top. There was this like video circling where there was this mom who was younger than us, but I would say like early 30s. And she went to the library with her 2 young kids, and she was wearing a sweater, just like the one you're wearing.
I saw this.
Yes. And she basically posted about how the librarian came up to her and was like shaming her for wearing the sweater. Because when she went to go pick up the kid and put her on her hip, I guess it lifted up a little. And I was like, holy moly, like that's shocking, because she wasn't wearing like a crop top, right? Like it touches the top of her pant. It was really because she was putting her kid on her hip, and that kind of goes back to that term of like, people like age appropriate stuff. And I definitely think that like we're seeing like a shift in what that looks like. If you look at what women were wearing, several decades ago at our age, like it looks very different than it does now. And so I do think that, that kind of old school perception of like, you can't wear that, right, is definitely changing. We're living longer, like you're seeing different things on social media, so that plays a role. But it's really interesting that there's still, this stigma of like what you should and shouldn't be wearing at a certain age. And yeah, I think the comfort thing comes into it for me. I know like sometimes I don't wear things because I'm like, I don't want to be worried about my boobs falling out at the top of my shirt, so or like you're like, I don't want to be worried about like, whatever flashing someone. So you might alter it. But yeah, there's definitely that age appropriate thing. And like, how do you, stay fashionable without kind of overstepping the line, but not feeling like you look like an old granny, right? Like, how do you navigate that?
The other thing I think about is I sometimes look around, and whether it's on trends I see on social media or just in person, and it almost seems like everybody sort of looks the same. So if something's trendy, and something else I wanted to mention was the idea of micro trends. The trends are changing at rapid fire nowadays, right?
Yes.
Something is, it used to be something was trendy for a year or even a couple years. Now it seems like the trends just cycle much more quickly than they ever did previously. But is that everyone sort of adopts the trend around the same time, and then everybody looks the same. And something that made me laugh is a J. Crew factory opened in our town about a week ago. And if you ever wanted to create some buzz among people our age, open a J. Crew factory. Messages that have been flying between different groups of friends of mine locally have been rapid fire. It's been hysterical. And I've been in once, spent a little bit. There's 50% off over the weekend. But we all were joking, like, oh, J. Crew factory's opening. And then I made a crack. We're all going to look like clones. We're all going to be wearing the same versions of J. Crew factory outfits from shopping there. And it comes back to this idea of everyone's sort of looking the same, but that conformity actually is highly activating for our brain. So there's certain regions of our brain that are highly activated when we conform. And it's both the anticipation of conforming and then the quote unquote receipt and reward of conforming on the other end. So even the anticipation of seeing a trend and saying, I think I'm going to try that. I like that. That actually activates our reward center. And so that's what propels us to engage in the behavior of purchasing
Dopamine.
It's all about those dopamine hits. And there's the idea of that in-group and the out-group. And when you're a teenager, that's the in-group. It's dressing trendy. Like, oh, we're trendy. We're in this in-group. The adults are the out-group, the older adults. But then when the older adults start dressing like the teenagers, which are supposed to be the in-group. So I think it brings up that social psychology concept of in-group and out-group as well, related to conformity, because you feel really good when you're in the in-group. And even maybe the people in the out-group, they want to be in the in-group. So that feels good if they can get in.
And how much we engage in that too, how much we engage in social conformity. I think
Mhm.
about the social comparison theory, right? Which is, I mean, strongly related to social conformity, but this idea that we evaluate like our own worth by comparing ourselves to others.
Yeah.
And if that's something that you engage in that social comparison, then you are more likely to conform. Doesn't mean you have to engage in social comparison, but you're more likely to conform because you want to avoid feeling left out or inferior in some way. And conforming to fashion trends is one of those ways that we compare ourselves, right? And so it can become a real pressure to feel as if we have to conform to these social trends, these fashion trends, if we don't have a good sense of self. Vanessa
Yes.
said what works for our body, what we're comfortable in and confident in. Because if we're not dressing in a way that works for our self identity, but rather because of social comparison, we're going to use up some of our cognitive capacity,
Yes.
worrying about what we're wearing, not feeling great in what we're wearing, trying to figure out how we're going to sit and what we're like, right? And then we're not going to be as present in the sort of day-to-day tasks that we're engaging in
Well,
as a
then also
result.
like leading up from that, like, if you're constantly trying to, compare yourself to someone who has a totally different body type and can
Mhm.
Right.
can wear things. So it's not even just in that moment that you're not having fun because you're so worried about how it's fitting you. I think it starts to take an impact on like your mental health, right? You start to feel like,
Absolutely.
maybe something's wrong with my body. Maybe I need to go on a diet, so that can be things like anxiety, depression, and can really impact that. I think the good thing is that as you get older, I think most of us, not all of us, right, really start to get a good sense of, who we are. Our self-identity
Mhm.
really starts to, obviously it starts to evolve, but it gets, I think, increases over time
That
as you age,
consolidates.
and you can
Yeah.
kind of decide like
Yeah.
how much do you want to conform versus how much you don't want to. Like I know for me, like I love when I go to like some wacky off the beat boutique and find something and I'm wearing it and someone's like, "Where'd you get that?" And I was like,
Mhm.
"Yeah." Like that to me is
Right.
like there's my dopamine hit. I'm like, "Yes, I love it when someone asks me about that." But yeah, so I think it's this interesting kind of balance of, conforming and then figure like who you are and how you kind of balance those two things. I think it's easier as you get older, I think for most people.
Well,
Well, and I think,
Amina, you do a
yeah.
lot of work in with body image, especially like adolescent body image, eating disorders. How do you help? I'm going to put you on the spot, but
Yeah.
maybe we can have a
Love it.
discussion further about it. How do you help adolescents, especially young girls, develop that sense of self so that they're less likely to engage in social comparison and social
Mhm.
conformity and more likely to focus on what works for them? Because I think, listen, we're all in our 40s and we're still figuring that out to some
Yes.
extent.
Mhm.
Yeah, Lauren.
How do you foster that?
Yeah, Lauren, that's a really good question. And I think that one of the things that I encourage a lot is to, since I kind of work with what they're already doing. So if they're on social media, I'm like, let's find some people who have bodies that are similar to yours. And why don't you
Mhm.
start following those
Yep.
following those bodies, those accounts? Look
Yeah.
at those, because guess what? The more you look at people who are like you
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
have bodies like you are going to feel better about yours. I mean,
It's that
you guys, this is
familiarity piece.
I
yes.
You're
love
seeing
that.
I
Yes.
it.
mean,
Work with what they're already doing.
Yeah.
and
I
so,
love that.
I mean, I did my dissertation on
Yes.
the detrimental effects of even just perusing, the media and looking at all these, bodies that aren't yours,
Magazines.
and how like 5 minutes of that can increase your body dissatisfaction. And
Yeah.
so, absolutely, if these young kids are consuming and just seeing the same bodies, the same fashion over and over again. And so I just listened to this like fashion psychologist, and she was actually saying that in the fashion industry, they have a social responsibility to, because everyone wears clothes. So the
Yeah.
ideal thing would be that all body types, shapes, and ethnicities are represented in the
100%.
fashion world.
I love
Like
that.
Which I
like
feel like
that
they're doing better
they
at doing
are.
that. They're much better.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Much better.
It
Absolutely.
didn't used to be that way.
No, I
No.
remember like so we were in our 20s, in the 2000s when the wafy
Mhm.
model was,
Kate
I'm
Moss.
yes, and
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm half Brazilian. I've always had a big booty and hips. And
Yep.
I can distinctly remember being like not liking the way that I looked often because I didn't look like that. And, I remember, like my stepmom saying like, you look Brazilian, like, and I would just be like, 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 that's not what I want to look like. And I can just appreciate so much now, like, I know we can talk about the Kardashians for a whole episode, but like, I will say, like curvy body has become like acceptable, right? And now we're seeing a lot of these stores have like Thank You Loft for like curvy, like, right. And having different, and not just that, but like heights, right? Like, again, I'm 5'3", like I always was like, I'm so short, and now we see like you can get your pants are short, right? Like you don't have to go hem them, right? And like do all the things. So I do feel like the industry is getting better. I mean, clearly there's still a lot of work to be done, but I do think that we're seeing more types of bodies in ads on social media, which I think makes all of us, right, feel better about who we are when we can see that.
And I also work with like just what is driving this need to, like, when you are so dissatisfied with yourself or your body, what's driving this? Like beyond just, well, I just want to look like this, but we really get to like underneath, like
why?
what are the,
what are the
reasons?
needs?
What happens if you never look like this, or what happens? And it's often, you guys, it's often like, I'll be alone. People won't like me. I mean, the things that come up, these are big things. So when people are just, you think, oh, it's just that they just want to look like this body type. Oftentimes it's driven by, I mean, sometimes parents, there's a lot of heavy influence of parents and pressure. And so they actually believe that they will be unlovable if they don't look a certain way. So it really is, it's never as simple as just, this, it's always more. And same with fashion. I mean, you could talk about it on this surface level, but we, underneath there's so much driving fashion psychology and the reasons why we gravitate to things, the reason why seeing this trend makes us want it more, and wear it. So it's fascinating.
I listened or read the same article Wilhelmina's referring to with the fashion psychologist, and she quoted that up to 80% of the clothes in our closet are not worn because we engage in this social consumption, right? Like,
so we're purchasing even though we're not going to wear it.
Correct. Yeah. And this idea of like, we can reduce that. Certainly the sustainability piece, the overconsumption is a huge thing, but we can reduce it for ourselves and just recognize like, what are the pieces that I'm actually wearing? What do I actually feel really good and confident in? And then focus on those and go from there. And I mean, that to me, I don't know, that seems like a good thing to instill in adolescence as well.
Yes,
right.
Absolutely.
Like, what makes you feel good?
Well, isn't that like the Maria Kondo, where she said, what sparks joy? And she actually touched on clothes, and she said, get rid of everything. She's like, most people go into a packed closet, and they actually, the more packed it is, the more likely they are to think they have nothing to wear. But if their closet is smaller with just pieces they absolutely love, they don't feel that way as much, which is interesting. Like,
how do you feel? I'm having a reaction to you saying that, because I've been trying to work on cleaning out my closet, and I thought I was being ruthless. And I know deep down I still have more to go and more to do.
Yep.
As I'm in my closet right now, looking around. And
looking at it.
My initial reaction to that is, but what if I need it? What if what if there might be
I do the seasonal rule. If I get to that season where I think I'm going to wear it, and I get to that season again and I haven't worn it, it's
the one
does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like right now it's looking at all the stuff in the winter that last year I said, but what if, and then if I spent all last year and I never wore it, then it's out.
No, it's tough for me too. I keep way too many things, and I emotionally attach to things. But I loved this outfit, and I think I'm going to bring it back. Like, and no, I just doesn't.
And
like,
don't.
You don't. Yeah.
And then we've talked about this before, because like sometimes you say, well, this trend is going to come back because lots of trends cycle. But we've talked about this. It never cycles exactly the same, right? So if you're willing to be like that standout person who's like, I'm wearing vintage, whatever, great. But it's not going to trend back exactly.
Version.
And whatever you had in your closet probably now looks like you've pulled out something and it looks old. It looks like it's been sitting in your closet. Like it
Remember
has that look
the
to it.
remember the 7 wide leg jeans?
Oh, yep.
Mhm.
Yes.
I loved my 7s. I just donated them
Ooh.
because wide leg jeans are back in style, right? I put those on. They are so low waisted.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
I saved all my boot cuts. I was like,
can't do it. Right. I just donated them because I had kept them for exactly the reason
Mhm.
Vanessa said.
Yep.
And they were in great shape, actually. And I
Yes.
think I mean, I am sure they are still making that cut, but with a different waist now.
Mhm.
Or like a
And
different
so I
kind of
just
flair to
donated
it.
them. It
Yeah.
was like, we're done.
Yeah.
I have a
right?
question. If low cut jeans come back, they're
Oh.
sort of back, but the ones, will you indulge in those?
I don't think
Can't do it.
so. I don't know. I don't
Sit
think
down
so.
and worry that I am like showing the world
The butt
the
crack, like your
nether
butt crack?
regions.
It's just like, but not even that. Like, I feel like it's after you have a baby
Yeah.
or two, like your body's
I want to
different.
tuck it in a little. Yeah.
This doesn't work.
Like, I feel like the high rise give you like a little support.
Mhm.
Right?
It's like built-in support, So
And I actually
my
think
high
people
rise.
look better with
Same.
I genuinely like
Same.
from a like
Lengthens
aesthetic,
them.
like it makes their legs look longer. It
Yeah.
makes everyone gets cut off with low rise. So I actually was like, I can wear a lot of these shirts that I always wanted to wear, but with low rise, I looked kind of like dumpy. But when all of a sudden when you put it with high rise or like high waisted, it looks totally better. So I think actually from a fashion, like what actually looks good on a body, I think high waisted looks better than the low rise. Not to say that that's just,
Low
I'm sure it'll
rise,
come back. And
low rise has a sort of a trashy element to it.
Mhm.
Don't you think?
all
Yes.
you can see is the
No.
thong coming out of the back. That's all I can picture right now.
I mean, it's probably also because like we wore those when we were in our 20s, right?
Yeah.
Like, and you imagine what you were doing in them, right? Like,
Right.
so like
Jeans and a
you
cute
correlate
top.
those things. You're
A
like
going
yeah.
out top.
Jeans and a cute top.
And a going out top. Like,
Jeans and a cute top.
this is a
Yeah,
good going out top.
What do you guys think of the concept of a work uniform? So in one of the
Yes.
articles I was reading and researching this topic, they talked about how the people that are highly successful people, business people in different kind of areas and different professions, tend to adopt a work uniform because it frees up cognitive
Mhm.
capacity.
Oh, I definitely
So
have one.
they reference Steve Jobs.
Yep.
Um,
And
uh,
Facebook guy.
well, yeah, Facebook guy. What's his Mark Zuckerberg.
Thank you.
But I thought about like Jennifer Aniston. She's always getting flack
Yes.
for wearing a little black dress on the red carpet, but
looks
she has
great.
remarked before
She looks
it
stunning
works
every
for
single
her.
day. Yeah.
Exactly. So she doesn't
Yeah.
have to think about it. She can put it on and she can keep it moving, and it frees her up to engage. Again, we had kind of touched on this before, but to like engage cognitively in the rest of her life as opposed to being focused on like, "Ooh, I'm doing something that's trendy or out of my comfort zone and I don't feel great about it."
Well, we have a finite amount of self-control and reserves per day to focus on what we need to do. It's why kids have meltdowns after school. It's called restraint
Oh, yeah.
collapse because you have
Right.
used your resources.
Or
The
impulse
analogy
control.
I give
Yep.
my patients is that you start your day with a full bottle of self-control and cognitive
Yep.
capacities to focus on what you need to get done, your to-do tasks. And every time you have to exert self-control, even brushing your teeth, thinking
Yep.
about your drive, even if it's the same commute every day, thinking about your drive to work, having to return calls for work, you're pouring out a little bit of that self control. So as the day wears on, by the time you get to the afternoon and evening, you're pretty much tapped out and it
You're
starts
done.
over again by sleeping. And so if you can eliminate the wardrobe crisis in the morning,
Right.
that's keeping some water in your bottle for other tasks that
Right.
have to be accomplished that day.
I mean, I think that's part of the reason behind school uniforms.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Something
You know,
I like the idea of a work uniform. And since I mainly do evaluations nowadays, I don't see the
Yeah.
same people very often. So
Same. I do.
one of my suite mates, Dan, the social worker that shares my office suite, sees me. I pointed out, I said, I know I wore this last week. It's the same.
Oh,
He's like, I don't
sometimes
care.
I will wear it back to back days because I know I'm not seeing it.
I just like rotate like I put the shirt at the end. Like I have a small rack for
Yeah.
it's funny, like my work clothes section is very tiny compared to like my going out section, which is hilarious because I spend most of my time at work. And so I just put the shirt at the end so
Yep.
that like I go like because otherwise I've like
Cycle through.
did I wear this last
Yep.
just so
Yep.
that I can make sure that I'm like rotating it. But it's a
You're right.
very small, tiny rack of work clothes, which I laugh because I have like racks and racks of going out clothes and I don't go anywhere. I'm like,
That's that
why do I have
80%. That's the 80%, right?
So
But
I think I would struggle with it. I very much understand the logic behind it and the psychology, and like it would be less effort to just grab. When I was pregnant and just had my small little like wardrobe of
Oh,
maternity clothes,
right.
I was like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
I want to keep this forever because this is I pack, I just put those things in. I
Yeah.
get up in the morning, I'm like, do I wear this shirt or this shirt? Done. Like it was so freeing. And I was like, I'm going to capture this feeling and I'm never going back. Yeah, that didn't last. So, but I will say one thing that I've been doing, I know you girls have heard me talk about this. This is not a sponsor. This is just something I truly love. I have been using Newly rental.
Oh,
oh,
yeah.
it's like Rent the Runway.
Yes,
Yes.
and for me, I like it because I do like to try new trends. I do like that dopamine hit of like new stuff, but I also am at the point where I'm like, I don't want to be spending all this money on just something I'm going to wear a
Right.
couple times for a quick dopamine hit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do have that sustainability piece in the back of my head of like, let's not just keep buying stuff, like
Right.
so there's that. And just I like the refresh every month. And so I pay a set
I was just
amount.
gonna
I get
ask, what
yeah,
is it?
it's like $90 and you
Okay.
get 6 items. And
Okay.
so you can choose. So this isn't like Stitch Fix where they just send you stuff. This
Right.
is you pick the exact outfit or the sweater, the size, pants, everything. And so you can do it for trips. I did it last year for our trip. I do it around the holidays because then you get like new holiday outfits that you're
Wow.
then not needing to buy a whole new holiday outfit. And so that for me has been a nice little, I've actually shopped a lot less because I'm able to kind of fill that cup, but I do it in a way that feels financially responsible for me more so than like going out and spending a bunch of money, like environmentally responsible. And it still allows for that fun fashion flex for me that I get to like try on new stuff. So that's one
Good
way
idea.
that I've been doing, and I do it for work a lot. So I get my little
Mhm.
workout uniform for that month. It's like those 2 pants, these 2 sweaters, and I just sort of rotate through those. So that's how I kind of make it work.
I try to do like things that I know that that are like what I would consider like a staple in your closet. So like a black blazer,
Mhm.
like a jean jacket. Like I'll spend more money on them, but anything that I think is like going to be around for a minute, like I will like look for like the cheapest, like I won't invest a lot of money in it, just, if it's something that I really like. But that's kind of how I, try to figure out like what am I willing to like invest in, spend a lot of money on
Mhm.
versus like, what am I not? So I really try to figure out like what is something that like is a staple that's going to be around for a while, that's not like super, super trendy. And that's where I'm going to put my bang for my buck, right? Like that's where I'm going
Right.
to spend more money versus something that's like, like this probably isn't going to stick around sort of thing, then I might, get like a Amazon version of it or something so that it's not, as expensive. So that's what I try to do when I'm trying to decide like, do I want to spend the money on this? Like, is it worth it sort of thing? I try to figure out like, how much am I going to be using it?
Well, and what Wilhelmina said before, it's like that idea that you buy 5 for, buy 1 shirt, get 5 free or whatever. It's like it's not sustainable, and that's probably not the thing that you're gonna have around forever. So it
Yeah.
makes more
Yes.
sense to spend the money on the one really nice
Mm-hmm.
item that is gonna be
Yes.
in your closet in 5 years from now that you're gonna know, like, "Oh, that's in my rotation regularly." And you don't have to ask yourself that question, but, like, what if I need it one day? Because you are regularly wearing it.
Yeah.
Can we talk just 1 second with this, like how this factors into hair,
Ooh,
like
sure.
hairstyles for women?
Yeah.
Because I think it's something that I've been very aware of recently in terms of, me, I used to love to change my hair, right?
Mhm.
Like you have seen me in every hair color. I do cuts, I do it all. Like I just have always liked to change that up. And now I'm like, I'm too old to change my hair color that drastically. I can't
Don't
do
say that.
pink. Well, can I do pink highlights? No, probably
I
not.
mean,
I mean, I
you
could.
could. It
Could.
I
just
could.
depends. What do you like? What,
What's
like,
the goal behind it,
yes,
Wilhelmina?
like,
Yes.
are you just like, this is what I want for me and I don't really care like what people think?
Well,
Like,
that
then you could
is.
certainly, you
Yeah,
could
then you
certainly
should
do
do
that.
it.
Yeah.
But like
I do think
those hair trends that are like like
Yeah. I
age
mean,
and hair trends.
well, I think, one of the things is like historically, it's like when you get to a certain age, you chop off your hair, you're not allowed to have long hair,
yes. That's
which
how it was when we were growing up.
Yeah,
for
like
a
that's
lot
I
of
was gonna
women.
exactly
say, I
how
don't
it
think
is.
it's
But
that
now
way
you have like,
anymore.
you're like Demi Moore's who have long hair and like she looks great and that's like her thing, right? Like we all know her and we know that she's got long hair. So I think like, that things have changed and I do think we're more accepting of long hair in women, right? Or like even color. Um, I've seen plenty of people in professional jobs who have different
Mhm.
colored hair. Like it
Mhm.
just
That's
depends.
true.
And even like
Yeah.
piercings, that's another good one. So
Oh,
when
yeah.
I was in high school, I had my nose pierced, my eyebrow pierced, all the things pierced, right? And I remember I had a job at a grocery store and they told me you have to put a band-aid over your eyebrow ring.
Mm-hmm.
This
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
is 1995.
Yeah.
Okay. And so many people would come in the store and they're like, this is so stupid. Why are they making you do that? And my 15-year-old self was like, I don't know. And now you go anywhere and everyone is like all pierced out. It's like completely acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
So I think those things change over time. But I do think, it's easy to get kind of used to the way you look, right?
Mhm.
And so I think that starts to contribute to difficulty kind of changing and maybe keeping up with trends. And so you start to see yourself like, I have long hair. That's who I am. This is my identity, right? And then you want to keep that. And so it's harder, I think, to kind of move with trends as you get older because you're used to the way you look, what works for you, and you kind of just stick with it. So I don't know. I feel like you can do whatever you want to do. I personally think that, but I also feel like there's that piece where you're used to how you look and it
Mhm.
starts to get harder to change that.
Mhm.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I think that's an
I
advantage.
think it
I think that's an advantage of getting older. We
I think that
feel
if you're okay with it,
Yep.
then it's okay. I
It's like
think
we
it's
feel
building
better
that
about where
strong
we're at. Yeah.
right. That building that strong sense of who you are. Speaking of hair, I've always there was years I can look back at pictures where I'm almost blonde from all the highlighting. And I remember like last year, my daughter was standing in the mirror in front of me and she says, Mom, she's like, I wish I was blonde. And I was like, why? You have such beautiful brown hair like mommy. And she looks at me and says, no, you're blonde. And I'm like, oh, okay, yes, like I guess I am pretty blonde right now. And just being like mindful of like, the message that you're sending to your kids too. So
Mhm.
I immediately went to the hairdresser and was like, okay, make me brunette again. Like, I need to have brown hair. So yeah, so I absolutely, I think as you get older, you become used to who you are and you become less concerned about what other people
Yeah.
think of you.
Yeah.
But if you want to do the pink hair,
Do the pink
I do.
you
hair.
should do
I
the pink
really, I
hair.
love, I'm like, cute
Do it.
pink highlights.
Start with a little clip in or something and like see if you
Oh, I
like
did that for the Pink concert. When I
fun.
went, I
Yeah.
got like
Yeah.
clip in and I loved it. I was like, oh, this is awesome.
Yeah, you could do that. Any last thoughts on our topic today?
I don't think
All
so.
right.
I think the biggest thing is that the more that you can figure out who you are and that intersection between sort of being authentic to you and finding what makes you unique and then applying that to what you're wearing or your hair or any of that, you're going to be like you're going to be feeling good in what you're wearing. You're going to be feeling like you're making good
Most
choices.
important.
Yeah, and you're not just spending money on things that you're never going to wear or you're not going to feel good in. So really holding on to that like identity and your own self concept of yourself. Yeah.
And confidence is trendy all the time. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
it'll
I,
absolutely.
come
and I think
through.
that's why people can wear like sometimes you're like, man, how's she wearing that? And it's like if you're confident,
Yes.
you can pull a
Yep.
lot off. It's
Mhm.
all
Right.
about how you feel in something. So whether it's trendy or not trendy, right? So you
Yes.
can see someone who's not wearing anything trendy, but she looks so confident and she's like, I got this.
Absolutely.
That comes across, in whatever they're wearing. So it's not even, I think, about what you're wearing, but it's just that confidence. Absolutely. That's a big
Yes.
piece.
That's huge. I
5%
mean,
stuff.
I've seen people like I've put on like hats. I'm a big hat person and people are like, "Oh, I can't wear hats." I'm like, "You can wear anything you want if you just like own it."
Yeah,
Like and feel good.
absolutely.
So, yeah, absolutely. Confidence.
Awesome. Well, that was a good chat, ladies. Thank you for joining us today. Join us next time on the Shrink Down as we explore a new topic and add our psychology knowledge to it.